Good morning, everyone. My name is Tegan York, Watcher 0317 Actual, uh, which is my gamer tag on Steam. It's also something that is actually kind of close to me, personally. Anyways, what you're looking at is my my desktop screen, my primary one, and all that. So, a while back, I decided I wanted to have a multi-monitor setup, and when I first did it with a dual monitor setup, and it was just horrible, like everyone else. Like everyone else has said, you know, when you're trying to play first-person shooters or just games that don't really support multi-monitor setup, the center point always becomes the seam and all that. So I decided I wanted to go with it. So I decided to go with a triple monitor setup and all that, but like trying to go through NVIDIA and using their stuff, it just causes a lot of issues. Performance degrades, frame rate drops. It just really sucks. And so I had a really hard time finding something. And just through a bunch of trial and error and trying various things that I found online, I finally figured out something that I was able to get, you know, consistently working on a fairly regular basis, and works with a multitude of games, and also enables some proprietary features that are only set to work with the 4000 and 5000 series cards, which is frame generation. Anyways, so what I found a gentleman on Reddit whenever I first started this that posted a video, and in his video he uses a program called Lossless Scaling. So Lossless Scaling uses spatial recognition, AI type stuff, and it uses NVIDIA image scaling, and it AMD FSR, a bunch of other different things and all that. So I'll get back to this here in a second. Anyway, so I just kind of wanted to run through it on how I configure my system to work with it, and everything, just kind of walk y'all through step by step. So I have 3 monitors. So I have 3 monitors. The 2 left monitors, this one, and so my middle monitor and my left monitor are 1080p. My far right monitor is 1440p. So in order for this to work, all monitors have to match on the same resolution. So for me, it's easier to keep the default resolution of the 1920 by 1080p monitors and reduce the resolution on the 1440p to 1080p. Reason being is so the scaling isn't stretched across and just misaligned and everything like that. So in order to do this, you got to figure out the appropriate resolution. So what you want to do is you want to calculate it. Go to calculator and type in 1920 times 3, which is your horizontal. That's 5760. Okay. You don't want to do 1080 times 3, or oops, sorry, 1080 times 3, because that's 3 times the height. You're not going vertical, you're going horizontal. So you only want 1920 by times 3, which is 5760. You're not going to get 5760 by 1080 unless you go through NVIDIA, and it's going to process that as one gigantic screen, which is going to put a heavier load on your GPU and all that. So next thing you want to do is you want to take that 5760 and divide it by 2. The problem is it's 2880. Windows doesn't really recognize that. So instead of doing that, I just went with my standard 1440p resolution, which is 2560. Oh crap. 2560 times 3 is 7680, which is 8K. And then divided that by 2, which is 3840. Okay. So next thing is yeah, you want to get 1080p. I go with the 2 times resolution on Lossless Scaling. It's doubling the resolution instead of doing, anyways. So that's the reason why I'm dividing it by 2. It's just 2. So doing 1080 divided by 2 is 540. Windows doesn't go below, doesn't really recognize 540, or I think the lowest it goes is like this 640 by 480, and that's really dependent on the kind of monitor you have. So again, we're using 1440. 1440 divided by 2 equals 720. So our split resolution is going to be based on a 2560 by 1440p monitor times 3. However, the resolution of the monitors are going to be defaulted at 1080p. Okay, so and like I said, this is gonna be to keep the workload on the GPU lower, so we can have better performance, higher frame rates, and so forth. So in order to get what we want to be able to only use 1920 by 1080. So I said, you know, we wanted 1920 times 3, which equals 5760. However, dividing this by 2 to scale it by a factor of 2, which for actually NVIDIA scaling by a factor of 2 is actually scaling it by a factor of 4. Anyways, long story short. So if we just do 5760 divided by 2, we're going to get 2880. We can't do 2880 by 540 and get 5760 by 1080. It, for whatever reason, Windows doesn't like it, NVIDIA doesn't like it, whatever. So, like I said, we go up to the next resolution, which is going to be 1440p. So 2560 times 3, 7680, we half that, divide that by 2, that's 3840. So to get 5760 out of this, we're going to do 5760 divided by 3840, which gives us our scaling resolution of 1.5. So repeat that again. We want 1920 horizontally for 3 monitors, which is going to be 1920 times 3 equals 5760. Okay? If we can't divide that by 2 because it gives us 2880, it's because it's not a 16 by 9 resolution. So we go up another resolution to 1440. So we do 2560 times 3 equals 7680, which is 8K resolution. We half that divided by 2, which gives us 3840. To get our scaling right for this, we take 5760, divide that by 3840, and it gives us our scaling resolution factor of 1.5. Okay, so now that we have that, and the next thing is to figure out what our height is, because we want to go by a resolution scaling factor of 2. Yeah, so we got to figure out, okay, well, we can't just do 1080 times 3, because then that's going to be 3240, which is horizontal. It's going to blow the picture like way out of proportion, cut the entire picture off, and all that. And even dividing that by 2, it's just 1620, which is still going to mess things up. So we go to 1440p. So we go 1440. If we go 1440 times 2, we're going to get 2880, which is going to mess everything up and blow the screen out. So we need to divide 1440 by 2. So 1440 divided by 2 gives us 720. So our starting resolution that we're going to scale upward is going to be $3840 by 720. By 720. Okay. And we're going to scale up by a factor of 1.5. Okay. So how do we get that? You got a couple of ways you can do this. You can go in, you can download a program called Custom Resolution Utility, open it, and select the monitor you want it on. You can whatever monitor you have. If you have 3 LG Ultras and they're all the exact same resolution and all that, fine, just select one, and then you click this add button and you input it right, input your resolution right there, click OK. Personally, I was doing things like this, but it's not reliable enough. Then you got to go in, and then you got to go in and click, like, after you input it on CRU, you got to reset your monitor, which causes driver issues and all that. So at this point, it's easier just to go to NVIDIA control panel and go to change resolution. So my main monitor is one of my 1920 by 1080p monitors, which is this right here. Okay, so I'm going to go to click customize. I've already input my resolution, my 3840 by 720 resolution in here, so it shows right here. But you're going to create custom resolution, and you type in 3840 on horizontal by 720 on vertical. Hit test. If your monitor is capable of taking it, it'll pass. If not, you can try messing around with the frame rate, with the refresh rate. I'm sorry, not frame rate, but you can mess around with the refresh rate, lower it, see if it passes then, and all that. I can tell you right now, I have the monitor I have it set up on is 1920 by 1080 monitor, and it passes with no problem. So the other thing you want to do too while you're in here is go into manage 3D settings, go into program settings and add lossless scaling if you're using it, and then select image scaling and turn that on. Don't do it under global settings right here, because that's everything across the board, your desktop, your web browser, everything, every game and all that. So you'll have a lot of issues. I apologize about that, I got allergies and stuff. So do that, and then the next thing you want to do is go to adjust desktop size and position. And on each monitor you want to set it to GPU. You don't want it to set it to display, and you don't want to set it to display, especially if you have a G-Sync. If you have G-Sync monitors like I do. So just verify it's all set to GPU. If you have G-Sync enabled, right here, you shouldn't be able to use it, but it still allows, it still acts like it lets you select it, but it'll just usually just go right back to GPU. And if it does stay on display, you'll start having a lot of glitching, stuttering issues whenever you go to launch a game. So make sure perform scaling on each one of your monitors on your NVIDIA control panel is set to GPU. Okay, and that you set the program settings of manage 3D settings of your lossless scaling and enable image scaling on that. So, and you've also added your custom resolution on one of your monitors. Okay. Once that's done, go into display settings. And verify the resolution. Right here you can see this monitor has set 3840 by 720 in NVIDIA, and it shows right here. You don't have to set your monitor to that. You only want that in there, so whatever game you launch, it will appear in the resolution of the game. So this will work almost every game I've tested this on. It has worked. I mean, it has worked on the Division 1, the Division 2, it has worked on Destiny 2. The only games I haven't had it work on yet has been, well, even Ghost Recon Breakpoint, it works on. The Borderlands games I haven't got it to work on, but Borderless Gaming works pretty well pretty flawlessly with that. And all that, which I'll show you here in a second. I mean, even Helldivers 2 this is able to work with. So, but anyways, like I said, after doing all that through NVIDIA control panel, you go into display, verify that the resolution on the monitor that you set it on is available in there. The next thing you're going to want to do is open up lossless scaling. And I like using NVIDIA Image Scaler, one, because I've enabled it in the driver, and it's NVIDIA proprietary. You want to go over here and set under default the capturing API to WGC. I like doing double buffering. For me, it seems like it helps keep things smooth and all that. And then go down to where it says legacy. If it doesn't show, it'll have a down arrow. Just click it. It'll show windowed mode. So and then enable windowed mode. I like doing clip cursor because it prevents the cursor from leaving the game window. Just cursor speed. When you're doing scaling, And if you have this off, it can cause a syncing issue where it doesn't, where you'll hover over what you think is a menu item or whatever, but it won't show, and you end up moving the mouse like way off, and before it finally registers on that thing you're trying to select. Scale cursor, same way. It just, scales the cursor to what you're wanting. Rendering, like I said, I have G-Sync enabled. So I set my monitor's refresh rate, frame rate cap to 2 below the maximum refresh rate. Enable G-Sync, enable V-Sync via the driver on NVIDIA control panel, then I enable V-Sync on here just to keep everything kosher. Since I have G-Sync support, or G-Sync capable monitors and G-Sync enabled, I would enable G-Sync support on here. That's it for that part. This is where you want your scale factor for your resolution. So I said 1.5. Doing it exactly at 1.5 on lossless scaling, it makes it fit it to like too exacting, so you end up seeing like a window border because you have to have the game in windowed mode for this to work. So just trial and error and everything, I increased it a little over 1.55, 1.555 in that range. Seems to help pretty well. So the next thing, whatever game you want to try this on, click add and then browse, and then you select the game file or the exe of the game that you're wanting to use. So let's say I haven't done this before, so I put this on, I would go to my Tom Clancy game file, and then I would select the division2.exe. Don't do EA launch, don't do division2 launcher, it's the division2.exe. Long story short, no matter the game you want, if you're using Steam, go into your Steam folder, find the exe of the game, select that, click open, it'll come up here in your new profile, click add. If you want frame generation, you have to use LS1. This works across any graphics card, not just NVIDIA only graphics cards, and not just with the 40 series, not just with the 50 series or anything like that. This works across the board on any. So you want to select LS1, and over here on the selection you'll have 3 selections: LSFG 1.1, LSFG 2.3, LSFG 3. 3's I just went with the highest one. I can't really tell the difference. This right here where it says mode, I have mine set to custom, and I have it set to where it generates 5 frames ahead of the display frame. I am aware that this can cause latency issues and all that stuff, but it also helps with screen tearing, because what happens is, even though VSync is enabled, the frame rate that is being generated on this is can be higher than what is actually being rendered. So you'll get artifact and essentially still get screen tearing. So I just set it up to where 5, which gives me 4 frames, because if you use these right here, this is just 1 frame, this is just 2 frames, this is just 3 frames, so 5 would be 4 frames. You don't want to enable anything else other than, again, VSync to make sure everything synchronizes, and you want to change the capture API to DXGI on the game, according to Lossless Scaling, the filter, but it's the game. So change that to DXGI. and then go down, play around with this on here, and try. You can try window mode on and off. Usually I use window mode off, and then scaling mode, set it to auto, not custom. Set it to auto, and then set it to keep the aspect ratio. Don't put it on full screen. Set it to aspect ratio. Okay, and then so now that we have our filter set up and our scaling set up, our resolution set up, we go to default. Make sure you go back to default. Don't leave it on that, because don't leave it on the filter, because if you do that, then when you go to try to use lossless scaling, and you enable the scaling, it'll just distort everything. So select default, and you want to keep this key combination in mind. Control Alt S enables the scaling and disables the scaling. Okay, that's just the default for the program. You can change it to whatever you want, but just remember that the key combination, or the hotkey combination that you're using. So now that we have everything set up, our filter set up, our scaling set up, our resolution, base resolution set up, and all that. Okay, you want to launch the game. So just to give you an idea, like I showed you earlier, I have 3 monitors. Okay. Alright. So it finally launched. Just to verify y'all can see my screen here. So there it is. Yeah. So like I said, it's going to be a big long rectangle with that. So the next thing you want to do is, for me, I have to drag the window all the way over to the lower left corner of my far left monitor, and then press the hotkey combination. So you're still going to see this window, or this green, or for me it's a green border, but you'll see the window top border. So what you want to do is you want to take your mouse. Well, I just lost my mouse, so hold on. So you take your mouse, you hover over it. You see how it changes from the game mouse cursor to kind of like a regular mouse cursor. Until you see that, once you see that, you want to click and hold down your left mouse button and then drag it up, and then kind of adjust it until the Windows taskbar quits appearing or flickering. There you go. So if you're having issues like it's like still flickering, or it's still solidly there, put position in an area you think is good, and then just hit your Windows key like so. So just to verify that y'all can see everything, I'm just gonna bring this up. So as you can see, my game is now full screen across all 3 of my monitors. It should be able to. And that's the other thing too, is like when you have scaling enabled, sometimes you can get your mouse to come back pressing the Windows key, sometimes not. If you can't get it to come back after doing it a few times, just hit the scaling button again, and then you'll get your mouse back. I'm seeing it. If I have my afterburner, for some reason I've been having issues with getting it coming up lately. So, but anyways, worry about that later. Bring it back up. And of course, like I said, every time you unscale while the game is running, or you scale it back, you have to readjust the window. So, but if this is like, say for instance, you know, of course, if you're watching this video, you don't have this set up already. So none of this is it's just gonna magically happen. You gotta go in and, you know, do the adjustments prior to. So you launch your game. Depending on what you have it set on or whatever, you're gonna want to set the game to window, and then you're gonna need to set it to your resolution. Okay. And then of course you're gonna hit F to apply the settings and all that. I'm using the Division 2 just because this is the game I play regularly and all that. So, and it just works reliably for me on this. But like I said, you're gonna want to go into settings on this game, video, window, and then make sure you set the game to windowed, not full screen, not windowed full screen, but actual windowed. And then you set your custom resolution to your found new resolution. Okay, 3840 by 720 is going to work for 1440p and 1080p monitors. For 1440p, you're gonna set your scaling factor to 2. Okay, for 1080p, you're gonna set your scaling factor to 1.5. Okay. So, anyway, so like I said, I already have that set up on mine. And just to kind of give you an idea of what the game will look like. Now, I've never run this game while running OBS. So, it may run decent, it may run like crap, but I just wanted to show y'all what it's like. If everything is set up correctly on how it's supposed to be, you shouldn't have you shouldn't have any distortion, shouldn't have any stretching or anything like that. Because what you've essentially done is you've just taken the window of the game and just essentially maximized it across all 3 monitors. It's just overlaid over everything. So you're not gonna. So you'll be able to Alt Tab out. You'll be able to, you know, hit your Windows key without it shutting down the game or causing issues and all that. It also reduces the load on your GPU.
Agent and priority objective available.
So, like I said, here's the game. I have peripheral vision. Game's running smooth and all that. So, I mean, this is a huge open world game that is pretty resource intensive, and I don't have I don't consider my PC a very high end setup, but I digress. I mean, we're talking an AMD Ryzen 5 6700, not even the X version, and it's an older CPU. I have an older GPU that is high end. It's a 3080 series that I'm doing this on, and I'm using 64 gigabytes of RAM. I was doing this on 32 gigabytes of RAM before upgrading, and I've tested it on systems that use 16 gigabytes of RAM. So I know for a fact it'll at least run on 16 gigabytes of RAM. Anything below that, I can't guarantee, but 16 gigabytes of RAM and up, it should work fine. So, you may get some, tweakiness here and there, but overall it's still running pretty smooth. Just to show you. So let's get, go into some combat. So, and I am getting some frame stutter, but I think that has more to do with OBS than anything else. But overall, you know, it's still running pretty smooth and all that. Because of the type of account I'm using currently, my MSI Afterburner isn't up, so I can't really show you frame rates right now and all that. But on average, I'm usually, you know, hovering around 80, 84 frames per second. Alright, there you go. And also, and here's my setup. Got Umbra Initiative gear. This is that new Provocateur exotic chest piece from the climax mission from this season. So, not too big of a deal, but anyways, that's not what I wanted to show you. And so we'll go back. And I mean, it would be pretty good use too for you know, sim racing and all that, multi-monitor setup on a sim racer and all that stuff. Anyways, hope you have a great one. Thank you for watching.